All right, so I just got back from watching Young Washington, the latest movie from Angel Studios, who made Sound of Freedom a couple years ago, which was a big hit, and a couple other movies that some I've seen, some I haven't. And this is sort of a biopic of George Washington in his early days when he was starting to rise in the military, and kind of how that happened and how he became prominent in that world. So this movie does not go into the Revolutionary War or his presidency or anything like that at all. It mentions it in like these text things, but this is purely about young Washington becoming a leader, hence the title Young Washington. So this is obviously being released. The release is timely because it's America's 250th birthday, and so we're gonna release a patriotic movie about one of our most prominent, maybe our the most prominent founding father, George Washington. And I have to say, I wish it was better. Not that I wish it was about something else. I mean, I do wish that it was about, you know, the Revolutionary War, so it had more to do with America's actual birthday, or his presidency or something like that. But it's fine. I should judge a movie on what it is, not what I wish it was. And what it is, I still wish it was better, because this movie, outside of a couple scenes, is very, very bland and very boring. And that starts with our main character himself, George Washington. I don't know if it's the actor, I don't know if it's the writing, and realistically, it's probably a combination of the two, but man, is he just a plank of wood. He is just not interesting to watch at all, which is a real shame when they make these biography movies about people that the general populace generally likes. Like, you got Washington has his critics. He wasn't, obviously he was a human being, he wasn't perfect, but he was our first president, so a lot of people put him on a pedestal. And so these type of movies, and this happened with the Michael Jackson movie too, they're just put on this pedestal where they're like almost infallible. Now this movie does talk about George Washington's like failure at Fort Necessity. That's a big part of this movie. I won't get into specifics, but that is a big part of the movie. But again, that failure or character growth is more through inexperience than an actual character flaw, I would say, potentially. Where, yeah, he messed up, but it's not really his fault. He's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's in over his head. That's kind of what it's like. And there's a similar thing where technically in the Michael Jackson movie, Michael isn't perfect. He does have flaws, but it's like, well, it's because his dad was so messed up, So it's not really his fault. It's very similar here. But beyond that, his personality is so bland. He's just not interesting person to watch, which is a shame because as someone who did as much as George Washington did, he should be interesting. He was probably a very interesting guy in real life, but this movie does not convey that whatsoever. I just think of okay, I know we're comparing apples and oranges here because Hamilton is a Broadway play, not a movie, but it's dealing with founding fathers as well. And every character in Hamilton has personality, has that spice. George Washington is in that play and he's got a personality. He's not even the main character and he's got more personality than this George Washington. So that was a big bummer for me, is that I really was watching a movie about George Washington and I didn't care about George Washington. He was one of the most boring person in the movie. Now there's other actors in this movie, some veteran actors, Kelsey Grammer, Andy Serkis, Ben Kingsley, and they put some flair into their roles. They put some personality, and you can tell it's not the writing. It's just their screen presence, their acting ability. They've been doing this so long, they can put some personality into their roles. But it's just not the case with the guy playing George Washington. It's just, oof. Beyond that, the movie is kind of boring and talky. Beyond the battle scenes, there's a couple battle scenes in this movie, and I think for a relatively low budget movie, they're pretty well done. All right. Now, this movie does have a big budget, a bigger budget than most, movies made by smaller studios, but it's still smaller. And I thought the battle scenes were pretty good, pretty entertaining. For a PG-13, they still show the grit and grittiness of the reality of war in that time period and the transitioning between different, war tactics. I thought was interesting. How the troops, the European troops, the French and the British had to adapt to the way war was changing, more guerrilla style warfare and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of cool. But anytime the movie wasn't doing that and was doing like talking scenes that's supposed to be character development or, explaining plot or something like that, it's just not interesting. And again, that just goes back to the characters are not interesting. They're just there to say the lines, to say the thing, and then we move on to the next thing. So, do I recommend this movie? Not really. I think there's better movies to watch if you want to watch an American movie for 4th of July. There's just more entertaining movies out there, and I don't think Young Washington will go down as one of them. I think it plays it too safe. It doesn't do anything interesting with its main character, and outside of the battle scenes, which are done better in other movies as well. It's not like that's super unique of this movie either. It's just there's not much of note here. Was it abysmal, absolute garbage fire trash? No, I don't think so. I wasn't really rolling my eyes that much, but I wasn't really I was kind of waiting for the movie to be over. It is kind of boring. So those are my thoughts on Young Washington.